welcome back to the channel. We're going to continue working on our 2012 Lexus IS250. We're going to find out just how bad this drive axle is to change and finish everything up and get it back out on the road. So let's get started. We'll change the wheel bearing and the drive axle together to save ourselves a little time. We'll pull the brake caliper bracket off first. Leave the caliper on there. No need to take it all apart. The brake pads are brand new. Somebody had just done brakes on this thing all the way around. We'll hang our caliper out of the way. That looks like a good spot. Pull our impact out of there. And pull our rotor off. We'll disconnect the ABS wire just to get it out of the way so we don't end up catching on something and breaking it off of there. Use a pick to release the clip on it. Squeezing the tab doesn't work all that well, especially not with all the sand and rattlesnakes and cacti and everything else that you find in Texas cars stuffed in it. Pull our ABS wire from the knuckle. And we can pull the drive axle nut off. Tap the drive axle out, and it's not frozen in there. Bonus. You pull the cotter pin off the top. These are the awesome Toyota cotter pins that are reusable. Open it up and slide it off. And we can pull our nut off the ball joint. And give it a couple little tap-aroos to get it apart. And hopefully not tap the edge of the fender. Knock our drive axle through. And now we can pull our drive axle out of there. And there's our noisy wheel bearing. Definitely was this side. Now we can unbolt our hub from our knuckle. Just 4 bolts on the backside. And then we'll tap it out of there. So easy to work on rust-free cars. Toss that in the pile. We'll put our backing plate back up there, and our new hub. We don't even have to clean off the corrosion on the knuckle like we normally do on Illinois cars. Start all the bolts by hand. Once all the bolts are started, we're going to run them in there with the impact. Tighten it down manufacturer specs. These are air-powered Ugga-Duggas. So I had to wait for the drive axle, and in the meantime, I took this bolt out, sprayed a bunch of penetrating oil in there, a bunch of penetrating oil around this bearing that's in there, and hopefully that helped. Also, it being a Texas car, it might not be that rusty. We're about to find out. So the end of this little bolt has a little rubber stopper on there, and I'm not exactly sure what it's for, but my theory is when they put this in at the factory, they put that bolt in there and it just holds that bearing in place until they can come along with the snap ring and put it in there. Kind of the same premise as the little bolts that go on the rotors. They really serve no practical purpose other than keeping things from falling apart while it's going down the assembly line. So now we can squeeze our little lock ring out of there. Kind of rusted into the groove, so got to free it up. Wiggle one side around. See if we can get it out of the groove. And it fell back in. Now we'll tap the bottom out of there. And since it's rotating, it must be free all the way around. So now we can just squeeze it together and snap it out of there. So that part went relatively easy compared to some of the ones I've done in the past. Maybe there is hope for this job being a simple one. So we have our dollar store air hammer. The good one is still at work, so I forgot to bring it with me. We'll try this one. It's not quite as powerful, but hopefully it'll at least get it moving. Or just make us spend a bunch of time. So far it hasn't budged. We're going to go with this method for a couple minutes before we lose patience and have to go to plan B. And it's not moving. So I'll save you a little bit of time. We'll fast forward through this, a little more penetrating oil. And we go to plan B, which is a slightly more powerful weapon. Me. Got a long chisel in there, and we're just hammering on it. If we need a little more power, we'll not choke up so much on the hammer, but I'm trying not to take my hand out. Keep going. Once it starts moving, we're pretty good. There's almost no chance of it not coming out. And we don't have any oil leaking out of it, so we didn't break the oil pan. Bonus. Ha! I win! Now we can just slide the drive axle right out of the oil pan and toss it in the pile violently. That's what our oil pan looks like. That's a metal collar in there inside the oil pan, and that's what our bearing sits in. It's a little rusty, so we're going to have to clean it up. First, we're going to have to dry it all off because we have all that penetrating oil in there. So a little parts cleaner. We'll wipe it all down just to get the oil out. And once it's clean and dry, we got a little bit of rust on our rag. Take a little sandpaper and we'll sand off that little fine coating of rust in there. Clean it all up. Make it easy on the next guy. Get the other side. Trust me, I am cleaning it, even though I'm standing in front of the camera. I had no choice. And after all of our cleaning is done, that's what it looks like. Pretty much what it used to look like. And here's a look at our pile. You can see that center bearing, all that rust on there. That's what was causing us all of our headaches. So in order to make it easy on the next guy, we're going to put a little grease on the inside shaft. There's a seal on that side that goes through the differential. So we want to make sure that we're not going to tear up that seal. So good coating of grease on it, slide right in. Because if that seal goes bad, you have to pull the differential out. And that's what I was trying to avoid when I was taking this axle out. We'll put a little grease on our bearing in the center here. Hopefully it keeps some of the water out of there. Now we're going to put our drive axle back in. And this is all you get to see because this is what the camera recorded. Technical difficulties. Kind of reminds me of the movie channels on cable that you didn't subscribe to back when I was a kid. Now you just don't get them at all. You could kind of watch them. So you just have to imagine me putting it all back together. It went a whole lot easier than coming apart. And coming apart actually wasn't too bad. So I can't really complain. The whole job took me less than a half an hour. And as if we didn't take enough of the doors in this car apart, we're going to have to pull another one apart because, well, Toyota. We have a door lock actuator that doesn't work and a belt molding that's peeling. And if you want to know how I fixed the belt molding, that's a separate video. There's a link in the description. But we need to change this door lock actuator. So we'll do it all at one time. Just pop the little covers off of our handle and our switches, get the bolts behind them, pop our door panel off, unplug it all, and we get this little rear door panel off. Slide it off the tabs, unplug our actuator, and pull down our water barrier. Gooey fun stuff. It's sticking to me. Gooey fun stuff. Pull our cables out of our water barrier, and we can unbolt our window channel at the bottom. Just need to pull it out of the way so we can slide the actuator out. Unbolt the actuator, slide it down, and pull it out of there past our window channel. At least they're pretty easy to change. I just need to pop the little caps open so we can put our cables on our new actuator. Slide the end of the cable in there, clip it in, and close the little door. Try to close the little door. This one doesn't have a little door. Pop it out of there. And snap it in. Ready to go back in the car. But before we put the actuator back in, we need to pull the door lock out. Since we're doing the driver's front door, it's the only one that has a lock in it. So we'll just pull the little screw out to take the cap off and slide it out of there. This goes directly into the actuator. You can get it out of there, but trying to get it back in there with that lock in there is just a pain. So we'll just take it out. Slide our actuator past our window channel. And then slide it up so that the rod for the handle slides into the slot on the actuator. And we'll put a couple bolts in it so we don't drop it and have to do that all over again. And then we'll tighten them all down. Now we can put the window channel back in there. We never took the top of it out of its little slot, so we'll just rock it back in there. We just need to move it so we can slide that actuator down. We needed to take it all the way out. Now we can put our cables back through our water barrier and stick our water barrier back to our door. Plug in our actuator. Otherwise it definitely won't work. So now we're going to make sure it works. Alright. Put our window down. Now we're going to pop our window sweep off of our door panel. Just use a pick to push one tab in on one side, and then we'll use our trim clip pliers / pry bar to pry it out of there. Once we got it out, we'll go install that on the door. Use our window sweep installation tool. Now we're ready to put our lock back on the outside. Just got to get that tab engaged in our actuator and tighten up our screw to hold it in. Put our little plug back in, and we'll pull our key out of our fob just to make sure this works. And it does, so we did get it engaged, and our lock isn't all corroded. In case the fob battery ever goes dead and someone needs to get in. And we'll put our cover back over it. Snap it on there. Since everything works, we can go ahead and throw our door panel back on. Put this rear trim panel on. Slide it into the clips and smash it on with our door panel installation tool. Put our rubber baby buggy bumper back in there. Now we can install our door panel. We'll plug in all of our cables for our handle and lock. Plug in all of our wires. Line up all of our clips and tabs and smash it onto the door. Put our screws back in our handles and put our cover and switches back in there. Plug our light in and snap that back in. Make sure there's no treasures in there. And now we're going to check everything. So it locks and unlocks. We know the door lock works. We're good. The Shadow Gnome is taking off the training wheels. Time for him to step out of the shadows and be in the spotlight. He's going to do our wheel bearing on the driver's side. And I'm going to watch and learn. I think I'm going to spring. This little coily thing up there?
Yeah, but I'm trying to put this through so it stays.
Put it up in the spot. Or on the bracket or something. There you go. Shadow Gnome couldn't find a hammer, so I had to show him my new electric hammer. Everything's a hammer if you're brave enough. So the Shadow Gnome found another use for the slightly larger electric hammer, and he's going to use it to pull this drive axle nut off. Personally, I think it works better as a hammer. Careful you don't get that jammed in there. And you did. Wisdom from experience incoming. Okay, now take this, leave the socket on there and take the ratchet off the socket. Or take the, yeah, there you go. Push the socket on.
Okay.
I'm gonna use your kung fu grip.
There we go. Still stuck, no?
Tip it a little bit. Twist, there you go. Alright, let's see if we can spit it out by hand. There you go. The rest of them shouldn't bind up, so. So how did I know that would work? Because I've done the exact same thing a million times. So in case you couldn't tell, what I had him do was push the socket onto the bolt and then disconnect the ratchet. The head of the ratchet is shorter than the head of the bolt, so it gives you a little bit more room to slide it out of there. We also could have turned the wheel, but that would require us climbing up in the car. Get the hub out of there. Put the backing plate back up there. You're in the way of the camera. They don't want to look at your back.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That goes in one way.
I'm not used to.
That turns.
Yeah.
So Toyota and their infinite wisdom made the flanges on these hubs offset. So right and left wheels are different, and they only go on one way. So you got to get them lined back up. It would have been nice if they would have made them symmetrical so that we could just use one bearing for right and left and throw them up there and bolt them in. But nope, there's a right and a left. Start all of our bolts, tighten them all down. And because torque values are critical, I'll take this
I'm
part.
not sure how much you're supposed to torque them down.
Good and tight.
Yeah, but good and tight kind of varies.
Yeah, it's a standard unit of measure. And we'll check and make sure our ABS wire didn't get unplugged. And throw our rotor back up there. And put our caliper back on. I'll throw a lug nut on there so that it doesn't end up on his toes. Since he's not adhering to the strict safety dress code and wearing his steel-toed flip-flops like he's supposed to. Got to push the pad back to the end of the slide, dial down to the center. Where'd you drop? And slide the bracket on there and bolt it in. Those little things you saw falling off the back were actually to hold the bolts in. They're unnecessary. So we left them on the floor. Put our drive axle nut back on there. Tighten it down. Not all the way. I have this weird ratchet that makes clicking sounds. I think it's broken. But we're going to use that to tighten it up the rest of the way. We'll rotate the wheel to where the notch is on top. And we'll hammer in the little tab so our nut doesn't loosen back up. Our tires were a little bit worn, and there were 3 different brands. So now we have one brand, and they're brand new. So we're going to throw them on, but I won't bore you with tire mounting and balancing. Instead, I will bore you with sticker removal. You can use our little magic eraser, and whatever's left, we'll clean off with some wax and grease remover. Those stickers have been on there a while, and they were pretty baked on. It's time to throw our rocker molding back on our passenger side. Slide it up under the doors. We'll line up all the clips. Get them all partially engaged. Nothing worse than clipping them in and missing one. Although these do come off with a little wiggle and pull. Put our bolt in the end. And put our screws in the tops inside the door. The bolt in our rear. And one more screw up in the front. We had the rubber strip out of there so we could paint it, so it was a lot easier to get to those screws. We'll put our little plastic push pins across the bottom end. Make sure we didn't miss any. Give me an excuse to lay down a little longer. Now we can put our rubber strip in. The front of it tucks in to the molding, And it just has a bunch of push pins that clip in. And now we're going to check all the lights for our safety test. Make sure everything works. We'll also check the horn and the wipers. Everybody always asks if I watch my videos so I know how to put everything back together, and the answer is no. I'm not going to watch it on that little tiny camera screen. But what I do watch is this part, because I'm by myself, and to check the lights, I just record it, look back, make sure everything worked. If it did, I'm fine. If not, then I repair whatever lights didn't work and record it again. Now we're back from our safety test. It passed, so we'll do an oil change. Looks like I ran over a Twinkie and it exploded. Open up our little trap door and bungee cord it out of the way so that you guys can see what I'm doing and I don't have to fight with it. We'll remove the oil filter drain plug because some engineer had to overcomplicate things for us. Spin that out of there. And we can clip our little spout in there and drain all our oil out. And once it's drained out, we'll pull our spout out with our spout removal tool. And then we can pull the cap off for the oil filter housing with our special wrench, because we also had to complicate that. And they're always torqued down to 6,000 foot-pounds. Now we should be able to pull our cap and oil filter out of there. And it should be empty. Now we'll pull our drain plug out, drain the oil. And yes, I am wearing my Subway gloves because I just came from my side job. New filter, new gasket. Screw the cap back on as far as we can by hand, and then we'll finish tightening it up with our ratchet. Click. And our socket doesn't want to come off of there. I'll put the O-ring back up there for the drain plug. That's a new one, comes with the filter. Little groove it sits in. And we'll put the plug back in. And tighten that up. Click. I'll put our drain plug back in. And tighten that up. And do a little housekeeping. Close our little trap door for our oil filter. And put our screw in it. I can't believe I almost forgot. Got to tighten that oil plug up to Jiffy Lube specs. Now we can dump our oil back in. Try not to make a mess. And we'll put our cap back on there. Make sure their words are facing the right way. I don't want anyone to lose their mind if you can't read it when you open the hood. Everybody knows that's the 710 cap. We'll pop our closeout panel off of our little side panel here. Some Neanderthal was here. Somebody violently removed it at one time. Try not to break it. And now with that unnecessary plastic removed, we can get to the top of our air box. We'll open it up and disconnect our mass airflow sensor so we don't put any stress on that wire. And we'll slide our air filter out of here. And we'll slide our new one in. adds about 5 horsepower. Put our cover back down. Line up all the tabs and clip it in. Plug our mass airflow sensor back in. And put our useless plastic covers back in. Push all our push pins in. And since we're changing air filters and our car can breathe, let's see if our people can breathe. Pull a little shelf out of our glove box. And whatever else is in there. There's a little trap door in the back. You just slide it up. And this is the part where we should be able to see our cabin air filter. But the climate control is set on fresh air, and we need it set on recirculate. Or the other way around. I don't remember. If you can't see it, press the other button. And the little door will open up. And we can reach in there and press the little tabs that hold our filter down. And then we can lift the filter out. This is about the only part of the job that you could really mess up. And that's if you throw all this away. Because that little plastic tray isn't part of the filter. So we're going to need to save it. I think it's time. Well, gotta run to the parts store. A lot of thinking required. Up. Airflow. Down. Has to go like that. Much better. So now we can throw it all back in here. If we can figure out which way is up. Look at the arrows. Slides right in. And clips down on the tabs. And there's our little door. You get a better shot of it. And put our little cover back on. And we can throw our little shelf back in here. Just a couple tabs that clip into the side and then clip it into the bottom. It's like somebody exceeded the weight limit at one time on that shelf. We sent our Lexus to the detailing gnome and he cleaned it all up for us. And it looks pretty good. There are a couple little scratches and some rock chips, but it is an 11-year-old car with 136,000 miles on it, so we're not going to worry about those. They add character. In addition to all the mechanical work that I did that wasn't related to the accident, such as tires, right front drive axle, both front hubs, oil change, air filter, cabin air filter, left front door lock actuator, somebody else had done quite a bit of work on it before I got it. Pretty recent too. It had 4 KYB struts put on it, front brake pads and rotors, rear brake pads and rotors, and calipers. It has quite a bit of stuff done to it, so it's in pretty good shape, ready to go. The new owner shouldn't have to do anything to it for quite some time because, well, it is a Toyota. So if you'd like to be that new owner, head over to our website. It's available there. And if you don't know what my website is, the link is in the description. And we did clean all the dirt off. There's a little wear on the interior, but again, it isn't a brand new car. And at some point, it doesn't have to be perfect because it just adds to the cost. So if the new owner wants to make it perfect, he can go ahead and spend that money. Well, it looks like this build is done, but there's only one way to be absolutely sure. It's time to play everyone's favorite game. You guessed it. What's in my console? Yeah, we knew we'd find that. We didn't know I'd miss. What else? The door lock actuator. I should probably save this. Never mind. It's bad. How do I know? It's from a Lexus. What else is in here? Oh, Snap-on catalog. They're having a sale on electric hammers. I better hang on to this. That looks like it. It's just a small console. So, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next build. And I did have a lot of people that asked about the dash on these things because they crack or they turn all sticky and glossy. And I used a solution that was a fad way back when, but some people found a use for it down in the South. And that's a dash mat. It basically just covers up the dash. If your dash is brand new and you put this on, it keeps it from cracking or melting or whatever this is doing. They all seem to do it. I'm surprised they didn't replace them under warranty or recall, because it does reflect off the windshield and it's actually a hazard. But for some reason, Toyota didn't do it. So it's pretty common. Get a dash mat. They're available on eBay or Amazon anywhere from $15 to $200. I opted for the middle of the road $40 one. It doesn't look too bad. So that's what we're going with. A lot cheaper than a dash and solves my problem. So again, thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next build.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take I got no love